here, obviously around the fact that Washington and Iran can meet a Strait of Hormuz deal out there. So oil prices are going up again here this morning. And something to pay attention to, obviously, is rouse the market. And the markets today are down overall. Basically, everything's kind of, well, at least the S&P 500's a little bit unchanged, basically at unchanged here this morning because of that deal out there. Now, S&P 500 is being affected by Intel, which will be a stock we'll look at here in just a few minutes as well. So the Dow Jones right now down about 100 points here today to 54,059. S&P 500 is basically flat, folks. 0.5 up as of now. It's going back and forth between negative and positive. 77.81 for the S&P 500. The Nasdaq, well, down 35 points here today, 29,799 for that as well. And I don't have the S&P, I don't have the the small cap index in front of me here, nor Bitcoin. I'll get those loaded up. Everything was working fine, folks, until we went live and everything disappeared on our computers. So I'll get you Bitcoin and I'll get you the Russell 2K here later on in the show as well. Stocks we're paying attention to right now. Well, I told you everybody's watching Intel here today based off of losses for them. That's right. They're down about 3% here as the market opened this morning. They announced they'll be offering $15 billion in common stock. Yeah, that's right. They said they plan to use the funds for general corporate purposes, which, folks, a lot of that could be going towards capital expenditures and working capital. Think AI, chip production, etc., where that money could be going as well. They did say, Intel did, that the offering of $15 billion will allow the company to keep growing while maintaining a strong balance sheet. But again, folks, capital expenditures toward those AI chips that they are scheduled to be doing here with NVIDIA and things coming up. Intel in the news, biggest stock being watched this morning. A lot of people talking about them, down about 3% in market open today. And then there's a company called Verisk Analytics out there. They're a data analytics company. It's Verisk. Verisk is how I pronounce it there. But they're down 6.5% at open today. Well, they got some bad news from a Delaware judge on Friday. That judge ruled it must proceed with a $2.35 billion acquisition of a company called AccuLynx. Well, Verisk previously terminated the deal in December, all because the FTC review of the merger was not completed by the transaction's termination date, so they canceled the deal. And the judge now says, too bad, you've got to now go through with that $2.35 billion deal. So Verisk Analytics is down about 6.5% here today, based off of that judge's rulings. And then finally, there's Apple out there, folks. And, Apple, now they're down about 1% here at market open. Well, Jefferies downgraded Apple to underperform. It was at hold before. According to the bank's supply chain checks, analysts have concluded that an all-glass iPhone by Apple, much rumored for a lot of years now, well, Apple's never publicly announced it, but everybody's been expecting it for purchases and things that people can track these things. Well, it appears to be canceled now by Apple. So basically, Apple has a lot of pressure on it here because they're trying to create more expensive devices. Well, because they make more margins on the more higher end products out there, and a glass phone would be more expensive. You make higher margins as a company in that aspect. And that will allow them to combat the rising costs of memory with those large margin projects. And according to people that study supply chains, right, with these supply chain checks, they're saying that high-profile glass phone is canceled, not going to be made, and that obviously is a negative in terms of investors' eyes on another high-margin device out there for Apple. Isn't it amazing what kind of leads the investment side of things? Later on, when we come back, we're going to look at Berkshire Hathaway here today as well. Archer Aviation's in the news, and then GameStop also coming up. And we apologize for our graphics being down. They said everything was working smoothly. And then we went to go live, and all of a sudden, that whole site went down. We use an external site there for our stock stuff, but I'll get you the information. And like I said, later on, I'll get you the the Russell 2K and Bitcoin's pricing here as well when we I'll come back and look at the stock market here in a bit. Like I said earlier, well, the big news is the Strait of Hormuz. People are just waiting for the news to happen here as well. And oil is up to $80 here this morning. Iran basically this morning said they're not opening the Strait of Hormuz unless there's concessions from Washington. And will there be is the question. Usually that's not the case, right? And they want Mideast developments to happen, certain ones Iran does before they'll reopen that Strait of Hormuz. That's what everybody's kind of monitoring here this morning out there. And let's move to stories here in the United States that affect the markets as well. Yeah, the United States Postal Service, USPS. Well, they announced their net losses for the third quarter of 2026. And if you've been following the USPS at all, folks, it's not pretty for them out there. Yeah, they reported these numbers on Friday. Yeah. Third quarter losses reached $2.5 billion for the USPS. Yeah, it's leadership. If you followed McCollum on business or you see news anywhere else, we've been telling you about this for about a year now. But the leadership of the USPS continues to look for solutions to prevent an impending liquidity crisis that's coming up quickly, folks. They're going to run out of cash here in the next year. So the numbers are down from last year's third quarter. So some positive for USPS. Back then, they reported $3.1 billion in losses at that time. Now, the USPS leadership credited the difference in amounts to decreasing workers' compensation, which saved $416 million, and they also increased operation revenue by $1.1 billion as well, but obviously still a major deficit at $2.5 billion. The operating revenue for the third quarter was $19.9 billion. That was actually a 6.1% increase from last year, but it was a drop from last quarter, $20.2 billion in that last quarter here for this company. USPS, as I said, is expected to run out of cash by early 2027. And look, you got a $2.5 billion loss. And remember, they have limitations on loans. And I would argue a company that's losing $2.5 billion shouldn't be allowed to take out any loans, because that means they're operating at a deficit. How are you going to pay those back, right? And things. So USPS, something to keep an eye on. Even though there's improvements, still big losses out there as well. And we're going to talk a little SpaceX along with Tesla. Tell me a SpaceX Tesla merger isn't coming, right? There's long been rumors out there. We told you a couple weeks ago about what to do with the China version of Tesla if a merger happens with SpaceX. Well, SpaceX announced last week that it plans to build a semiconductor plant, and it's expected to become the largest building in the world. It's going to be 100 million square feet. Well, it's going to be built over there in Grimes, Texas, which, if you're not familiar, just outside of Houston, Texas. The factory is a joint effort with Tesla and SpaceX. The facility will house the manufacturing, packaging, and testing of advanced logic and memory devices. They call it a terafab, that they'll be building there. And terafab will produce chips optimized for edge computing and inference for use in hardware. Things like Tesla's Optima robots, the self-driving cybercabs, all those types of computer chips. Plus, they also are going to build high-powered chips designed for operating SpaceX's space-based data centers that Elon Musk has dreams of getting up into space. SpaceX also added that its and Tesla's combined demand for chips, it's expected to be in excess of the global supply, which is already, chip demand is already in excess of global supply. That's why the prices on them are through the roof. Now, the SpaceX as a company, they said the terafab would employ more than 3,000 people. Their initial phase is estimated to cost about $16.8 billion to build. Yeah, so coming your way. And like I said, they're combining that joint venture. Tell me those companies aren't combining without telling me there's a really big possibility that it is coming out there as well. Hey, speaking of SpaceX, we told you last week was the first time that insiders and things are able to sell their SpaceX stock. So what happens to it? Well, retail investors, who did spend weeks defending SpaceX, through its post IPO ups and downs. Well, they actually ended up selling, and they were net sellers on Friday, marking the first such instance, if I can talk here, since their blockbuster debut in June. Yeah, so these are the retail investors, so mom and pop traders. They sold a net $4.5 million in SpaceX on Friday. That's the first net negative reading since the company went public on June 12th. So people were unloading their stock. And keep in mind, it's right about where it was when you bought it at the IPO, at least on Friday it was. So the highest single day net buying in SpaceX's short trading history. It reached $144.6 million on June 16th back then. So it suggests here that the outflow remains modest because it's a smaller amount, uh, you know, compared to the highest level day of at least a selling of stock. Now, the a lot of individual investors last week, they bought the dip, as they like to say in investor circles. I saw that trending on the social medias. Shares slumped 13.6% back on August 5th. That was the fourth highest. The retail net buying on that day was the fourth highest since their June debut. So everybody hopped on, bought that dip as well. But some people did unload. Retailers did unload that stock as it after that initial IPO bump. It's gone nothing but backwards and kind of settling below that IP amount here as well. So people starting to unload it. Now a small amount. We're waiting for some of these insiders to start unloading big parts of share on SpaceX as well. Hey, you're a fan of Spirit Halloween? Well, their parent company out there, Spencer's Spirit Holdings, which includes companies, obviously Spencer's Spirit Halloween, but don't forget like Spirit Christmas that they're trying to become a thing as well. That's one company. And then you got Hot Topic. Well, they have, obviously Hot Topic's their main one, but Box Lunch and Her Universe stores, well, those guys there, well, they might be combining here. And the combined company will have over 3,000 stores coming up here in North America. Bloomberg reported last week that Spencer bought the Hot Topic portfolio for about $350 million. Private equity group Sycamore Partners acquired Hot Topic in 2013. They took a little bit of a loss here. Yeah, they bought it for about $600 million. They just unloaded it for $350 million at that here as well. Now, for that $600 million amount also, there's a little bit of a caveat because at that time, the sale included the brands Torrid and Blackheart that was not part of this deal they've already been spun off and sold off at that point. So it looks like a huge loss. They did get some money out of the Torrid and Blackheart deals as well. But Hot Topic, new ownership here. Are they going to start going into makeshift stores? Hot Topic going to start having flash Hot Topic stores now? Have to pay attention to that out there as well. And something's happening, with Gen Z that I find interesting. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I feel like it's karma for business people. And I know we have people that watch this show that are HR managers. I know we have people that watch this show that, are run companies, for instance, and stuff to that effect. And, it's just there's something that drives me nuts about organizations that are hiring people and how they act. And then to complain about the people you're trying to hire doing the same thing to you does kind of crack me up a little bit. That's right. We're talking about, employers are trying to, get through this slower hiring market. So are people looking for jobs out there. Everybody's trying to figure this whole deal out. Well, some hiring managers say candidates are accepting jobs and then failing to complete paperwork or simply not showing up on their first day of the job, which for the business side, it raises concerns about professionalism. But again, I point to this. I know a few people that have gone through job searches recently. The amount of people that don't reach back out after interviews or anything is disgusting on that side. So my opinion is you have no right to complain about being ghosted by Gen Z out there when you do it to everybody yourself out there. My little take. The trend appears to be more common than employers may realize, by the way. According to a resume.org survey, 54% of hiring managers have been ghosted by Gen Z candidates after extending a formal job offer. Yeah. Some of that, it's simple. right? Growing up online like Gen Z did, face-to-face interactions are more intimidating to a lot of young people out there. And then interviews, well, they can be especially stressful for a generation that, quite frankly, they're just used to talking through computer screens or, not just face to face on a computer screen, but just with a microphone and headphones on them and stuff like that. But my point here on this story is, until employers stop treating people like crap, if you interview somebody, send them a note afterwards. Tell them they got the job or they didn't, right? Instead of just not responding to them. You get what you deserve, employers, when you operate that way. That's how I feel about it. Hey, when we come back here to McCollum on Business, I'm pretty opinionated on that subject because I just don't get. I get it. You got hundreds of resumes and stuff like that. I get it. But if you meet with somebody, send them a quick email saying so they're not just waiting and waiting and waiting. We used to do that at my old company, the old SW. Yeah, it would be like 3 weeks before you'd hear somebody, and you're just like, what are we doing here? It's ridiculous. So you can't be upset that people are ghosting you when you ghost people. When we're back here at McCollum on Business, we'll move on to some local stuff. And, man, if you got health insurance here in Arizona through the Affordable Care Act, got some bad news for you on price increases. We told you before about what we saw on the federal level, nationwide, on what insurance companies were asking for. We got some numbers here specifically for Arizona, and I don't know what to tell you. It's getting ridiculous out there, folks. Come on back. McCollum on Business. And we're back here, McCollum on Business, here on, well, this Monday morning. Hopefully your Monday morning's going better than us. We're just having problems galore here in the studios, but we're working through it. Doing the best show that we can do for you here on this Monday. Just bear with us. Here's we're going. Stocks just disappeared when we went to do them last time. But I know one thing for sure. The Real Matrix, a new episode was out. NDAA came out on Friday for you. Up on Rumble, rumble.com/user/TME Media. Also, if you go to rumble.com and you just type in The Real Matrix, Angry Patriot, it pops right up for you now. That's finally part of their search engine there at Rumble as well. That is up, the free podcast systems of it. Just search the Angry Patriot, Real Matrix there on your favorite podcast system, Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeart, Podchaser, all of them. Well, you can find The Real Matrix out there. Fridays at noon is when the new episodes come out. New one out on Friday here as well. That is up now. And there's 41 episodes, folks. Plenty to get caught up on. Multiple subjects. If you're interested in a specific subject, well, probably covered it. I know he's got some more coming up here as well. Obviously, coming your way. So check out The Real Matrix over on Rumble. All of our programming is on Rumble as well. So from the pit stop to this show, McCollum on Business, to the main event, all on demand on Rumble. And then, of course, over on YouTube. Everything except for The Real Matrix on YouTube. TME Media AZ is where you can find us. This show, 7 a.m. live on YouTube. And then, of course, the main event. We roll into that from 8 to 10 a.m. Big show today, right? Larry Fitzgerald's Hall of Fame. Preseason football continues. Diamondbacks, pretty good weekend against the Dodgers here in Phoenix, right? And then, we got a team going to the championship game in the Indoor Football League. Lots to talk about today, wrapping up the weekend. So come and join us on the main event live, 8 to 10 a.m. If you can't catch this show or the main event live, catch us on demand as well on YouTube and over on Rumble. YouTube, TME Media AZ. Every show except for this one does have its free podcast out there. Pit Stop will be out on Wednesday as well coming up this week. So check out the free podcast if you'd rather listen to the show than see my face out there as well, or the Angry Patriots face out there for the Real Matrix. Catch the audio version of it as well. Every show has social media except for this one and the Real Matrix. This one is coming. It's reserved. We just haven't started posting on it or anything. Now, out there, we do have a website coming your way that'll have a bunch of fun little features on it that you'll want to pay attention to. So stay tuned for all of those announcements, folks. And just really quick, the debut of a Bird's Eye View coming out. Coach Mike Sheehan, 3-time back-to-back 2A state champions here in high school football, coming back and joining the show starting this Wednesday there on the main event coming up as well. So want to stay tuned for that. And with all that being said, follow every show on social media as well, except for this one and the Real Matrix. But also follow TME Media AZ as well, where we put out stuff about the shows, what we do here. This is a big company thing there as well. And folks, with all that being said, let's get back into the Market Watch. And pretty sure, still everything's down. That's all right. We'll keep rolling through this as well as best as we can. And I'm trying to pull up the Russell 2K today, and it's not pulling up anything on here. So I don't know what is happening. Voodoo around this place is causing problems. But I can tell you the market here today, it's basically flat here as we look at it. Dow right now is down 72 points. The S&P, it's up 9 points right now, but everything's pretty much considered flat here today. Out there, NASDAQ's 31 points up right now. The Russell 2K basically flat as well here today for that. The only one I don't have is Bitcoin. Let me look that up here really quick for you. Cryptocurrency stands out there that love that. The Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin's down 89 points today, but trading at the 64,756 right now for that as we're looking at that right now as well. Like I said, I apologize. I don't know. Everything was up and running perfectly fine till right before showtime. Everything, and just to give you context, the Russell 2K, it's down 0.27% right now. I told you it was basically even, and that is the case out there. Stocks we're paying attention to right now, again, no graphs for you right now, and I do apologize, but first one we're going to talk about, Berkshire Hathaway out there, right? Warren Buffett retired from this company, and they're down, they're up a little bit here, 0.5% for the day. Well, it's nominal for them. They're trading in that $800 range. But they announced on Saturday that it's operating earnings growth of 16% in their second quarter. Manufacturing, service, and retail earnings were where the strong growth was for Berkshire Hathaway. Their energy profits by themselves, no shocker there with energy prices being high, their energy profits went through the roof for Berkshire Hathaway. The problem that they had, though, was insurance. That was a lot weaker. Investment income declined 9% in their insurance division, which was the weak point for Berkshire Hathaway. Nominally up today, but 0.5% roughly, or 1% for Berkshire Hathaway is a big number since they traded in the $800 range for Berkshire Hathaway. Then there's Archer Aviation. They're an aerospace company. Yeah, they are big today. What's happening with them? They are acquiring 3 Boeing subsidiaries officially now. At least they announced that. Out there. Let me see what this stock is doing really quick. Since, like I said, our graph system just stopped working on us here right as we went to air. They're up about 18% here today for Archer Aviation. And as I said, all because they're buying and acquiring, they announced 3 Boeing subsidiaries. Well, that's important because Boeing is taking an undisclosed stake in Archer as well. Archer CEO came out and said the acquisitions will help the company diversify its revenues and scale. Well, the market likes that for Archer Aviation. Going into business with Boeing. Up today, as I said, big up today, 18.96% as of right now. And then let's look at GameStop out there. They're up about 1.5% here at market open. Well, Bloomberg reported that GameStop is heavily considering, is how I would phrase it. Well, right, abandoning that $56 billion bid for eBay that they kind of hostilely put a bid into last year, at beginning of this year. I can't remember which time frame. Well, now there's talks that they are thinking about abandoning that bid. Now, GameStop's unsolicited bid was originally rejected by eBay back in May, and then the eBay, called the deal neither credible nor attractive. No progress has been made on it since then for GameStop. GameStop up about one, and I don't think anybody was happy they were trying to buy GameStop, to be honest with you, or trying to buy eBay. And the market's responding. They're up 1.5% roughly, at least when the market's open today. Not sure what it's done in the meantime as well out there. And folks, let's get into some local stories that you need to know today, including your health insurance. We know we got the national numbers of a 20 to 25, 30% in some cases. Affordable Care Act asks to be increased nationwide here coming up for this next year. Well, we now know that the companies in the Affordable Care Act marketplace, they're seeking an average premium increase of 25% in Arizona for 2027. Because sometimes some states get lower percentages. The national one, they like Blue Cross Blue Shield might say, hey, federally, nationally, we want a 30%, and then individual states are lower. Well, the average is 25, folks, here in Arizona. These proposed rates were filed with the Arizona Department of Insurance and financial institutions. They filed it back in May. The filings were made public, though, just this weekend. That's why we know about it now. They show that the ACA marketplace health insurers in Arizona cited a worsened risk pool driven by the expiration of those premium tax credits that happened last year. The filings show that the 6 of the 7 insurers operating in Arizona's ACA market, well, they're seeking those rate increases of approximately 25%. There's one company, Antidote Health. Their offer, though, their increase, a 3% increase. Everybody else is 25. Okay. Side note, I don't know this for sure. Don't sue me if you don't want to. I'm just guessing. I'm just floating this. I read it somewhere. How about that? I read it somewhere. Yeah, they're colluding. If everybody's in that 25% range, yeah, they went in on it together. They know what they're doing. Antidote was like, no, we're going to do our own thing. Yeah, but big increases coming up, folks, here for your ACA membership next year in terms of your health insurance. If you're on that program, and I can tell you this, if they're asking for that for the ACA, your work one ain't going to be much cheaper. Keep that in mind moving forward. Speaking of health insurance and things, CVS Pharmacy here in Arizona, union members that work for them, they've unanimously voted to take a step toward a strike. Yeah, and now they're doing this. They're still in negotiations, but they're doing this, basically setting it up for a strike so they can do so as soon as they can, as soon as they want to, I guess I should say, if negotiations fail. Some CVS pharmacists and pharmacy technicians from Arizona and 2 other states are all members of the Pharmacy Guild. Seems like a precarious union. What union? The Pharmacy Guild. They're demanding what they call safe staffing levels, realistic workloads, and time to review each prescription. Seems like nice things to want, right? This week's members took an overwhelming, or they voted, I guess, and took an overwhelmingly past the strike sanction votes that establishes the parameters in case of an actual strike, and it secures outside support from the International Union if they do have to go to strikes. CVS said it's negotiated with the Guild in good faith for over a year now. Some discussions, though, haven't started due to National Labor Relations Board's proceedings they're waiting to get through. So keep that in mind. Prescriptions at CVS might become more difficult coming up as well. And hey, if you like to have fun and like to go up to the lake systems and you're in the East Valley, just a heads up if you haven't heard, Tano National Forest, well, that means They're in charge of the lake system up there, and they're going to close Canyon Lake starting September 8th. Yeah, the Bureau of Reclamation and Salt River Project, they're going to conduct dam safety inspections and maintenance there on the Canyon Lake Dam. Now, the water level of the lake, it will be lowered by about 55 feet in September. This is going to be fun, man. That means low levels. How much stuff are we going to find on the shorelines as they lower 55 feet of water? SRP says this type of maintenance, which takes place about 20 years, involves equipment located underwater that is only accessible by lowering the lake level, and that's why they go to that level. The utility says no water will be lost in the process. It'll just be moved to other reservoirs and everything. So we're not wasting water and just letting it flow down and down the river. So they say 2 feet per day is how it'll drop until it reaches that 55-foot level. And then it'll take about 4 weeks to do the work. So boat launches, picnic sites, the marina, even the Dolly Steamboat Lake Cruise, all will be closed, and you're not going to be allowed on the lake out there. Tortilla Flat will stay open. Obviously, I don't know why that would close. It has, other than being its proximity to the lake, has nothing to do with the lake. Now, the entire operation is expected to take about 16 weeks to complete. Folks, that's 4 months to complete that process. So starting September 8th, that means January. Beginning of January is when that'll be complete. Now, of course, then you got to refill it and stuff like that, right? Yeah, so just heads up. Canyon Lake closing here coming up in September 8th. And then, if you want to see where the growth of the valley is focused, right? You got those Arizona State land auctions. Kind of gives you the roadmap on where we're going. Business is very, very good on these land auctions here for Arizona land. Yeah, the Arizona State Land Department just reported a record-setting year. Yeah, they brought in $817.8 million through land sales and leases. And that was the fiscal year ending June 30th. So double what it brought in the previous fiscal year. That was close to $452 million at that time. So Arizona land auctions, now obviously there's, TSMC exists on former Arizona land auction. Out by my house, you have some new communities out there on their state land being built up. So Arizona's selling a lot of their state land for development over the last several years. Record number dollar amount last year as well for that. And kind of gives you an idea of what you can find and what you see out there. And, well, this story, I don't think it matters if you're a fan of Wendy's or Burger King, for instance. Hint, hint here. But you just take note here on where people are shopping, I should say, right? Well, Burger King's focused on things like the Whopper lately, and they have that freshness guarantee. If you don't like it, you get a new one next time, and all of that. And Wendy's is being Wendy's. We know they struggled 6% down in their global sales. I reported that last week to you here at McCollum on Business. And now Wendy's has lost its place as America's runner-up to McDonald's. That's right, folks. 6-year run Wendy's had as the second largest burger chain, which surprised me a little bit. Wendy's is the second largest, really? Yeah, Burger King has passed Wendy's, folks. Yep, Burger King claimed the number 2 position, and it's having a really good turnaround here in the United States. The domestic same-store sales jumped 8.5% in the second quarter for Burger King. I already told you Wendy's 6% decline in U.S. same-store sales. 6th consecutive quarter of contraction for Wendy's as well. Wendy's new CEO, well, he went out and acknowledged the chain's problems on Friday, saying its competitive edge has weakened. Customers have pulled back from Wendy's. And he acknowledged that publicly as well. They did their reporting last week. We talked about it here at McCollum on Business as well. So, McDonald's is the dominant U.S. burger chain. Nobody can touch them. But Burger King number 2 here as well. So, now the CEO of Wendy's, interesting enough, said their traffic, their value proposition, and franchisees' economics do not meet expectations. That's the core of their business, folks. Value, people going into the restaurants, and then the franchisees' economics, right? Do they make money? That's the core of what Wendy's does. And he said they're not meeting expectation levels as well. So they say they're making some changes coming up, right? And things to that. Now, Wendy's had surpassed Burger King when they were on a downhill slide about 6 years ago in everything. Part of that was Wendy's breakfast menu kind of lurched them above Burger King at that time. There you go, folks. But Burger King's parent company is called Restaurant Brands International. I believe they're based out of Britain, right? Is where they are. Um, but the 2022 Burger King started this revamp, and it's had success at it as well. So there you go, folks. Burger King number 2 chain over Wendy's now moving forward. And I think I've had a Wendy's hamburger once in my life. I don't go there for hamburger. I go there for Frosties, French fries, and I used to get salads from there a lot as well, but not as much as I used to from that side. So, folks, businesses, what we learned today: stop ghosting your applicants, and we'll feel sorry that the applicants and the job acceptance are ghosting you out there. That's the first story. And number 2, go try, and I'll tell you this: Burger King's prices are no longer cheap, folks. They are not cheap anymore in terms of their sandwiches, their hamburgers. Probably taste about the same as they did before, to be honest with you. I don't think I get a Burger King if I go there just a hamburger, just a plain hamburger with just pickles, mustard, and ketchup on it. It tastes about the same, but it's not 59 cents like they used to be. I can promise you that. But try it out. See what you think of Burger King with their resurgence out there and everything. And folks, see you tomorrow, 7 a.m. McCollum on Business.